watching Showcase, and coming up in this week's program, we take you to the banks of the massive Hardap Dam in Namibia, where the name of the game is angling. The massive Namib Desert in Namibia is an unlikely venue for an international fishing competition. But that's exactly what took place on the banks of the Hardap Dam near Marienthal recently.
It is the Region 5 tournament between South Africa, Namibia and Zimbabwe. They've been competing now for 3 tests in the different categories. There's a master section, a ladies section and a senior section, all competing with their different teams. The ladies team has got 4 pairs. 4 individual anglers fishing in 2 pairs. The senior section has got 3 pairs, in other words 6 anglers, and the master section also got 6 anglers competing in each of the teams.
Completed in 1963, the Hardap Dam is the biggest in Namibia, and it dams up the Fish River. With a capacity of 320 million cubic meters and a surface area of 25 square kilometers, the dam is ideally suited for competitive freshwater bank angling events.
Namibia is the host for the 2018 event, and the best suitable dam in Namibia is Hardap Dam, where the good quality fish are coming out constantly, and they always like to bring us here for this event.
The competition had a number of different categories, and the nation sent separate teams to take part in each category. However, Zimbabwe were only able to send a women's team to compete.
The Zimbabwe country is normally competing in the ladies section. Sometimes they also have a juniors competing, but they're struggling to get men to also participate in the discipline of freshwater bank angling. So mostly they're only competing with the ladies teams in this event.
The team element played a vital role in the competition. Each angler needed to be successful if the team was to thrive. The results are not dependent on the performance of 1 or 2 anglers. So what is the competition like between the nations, and does home water advantage come into play at all?
Well, it's a tough challenge every year, like it was this year again. Because of the point system, each of your anglers need to do well. And between South Africa and Namibia, it's always been a tough call. So sometimes when the host is South Africa, the Namibian team gets to win the event. And sometimes South Africa win it here in Namibia, because all 4 or 6 of your anglers need to do well during the day's fishing. Otherwise you'll struggle to make a good result for the day.
The tournament had strict rules and criteria. These pertain to the zones the teams fish in, and importantly to the species and size of the fish caught. Quantity is not rewarded as much as quality or the size of those fish.
The rules of the competition determines that you need to catch different species. You're only allowed to, according to Namibian rules, catch 20 carp, 20 yellowfish and 20 mudfish, and then 20 kerper or bream. So when you've got your quota full, you need to focus then on a different species. So each team are allowed then to focus on those different fish species, where you get 1 point per fish and 1 point per kilogram. That accumulates within your zones where you fish, and then the 6 anglers' points gets added up together to determine the winning team for the day. 3 different competitions where there's then 3 tests running consecutively 3 days after one another.
The 3 categories in the competition were the ladies, masters and seniors. Each was assigned a specific area on the dam's bank from which they could fish. While to the untrained eye these zones might look very similar, in fact for the anglers they were all very different and provided contrasting challenges for all the competitors.
There's 3 sectors that was utilized for the 3 categories. The seniors were sitting in deep water, where there's not a lot of obstructions, and they've been fishing a bit further out. The ladies section were more shallower water, and they were struggling with obstruction in the water. As you can see in the background, there's quite a lot of stones in the water, so you often lose fish on the snags in the water. So the ladies had to worked through 3 days of tough fishing with the snags, losing a lot of the fish on those snags. In the master section, there's also deep water, so they've had a little bit of snags, but not as much as the ladies had. So the ladies had the tough game. The different fish species wasn't as active. There was a cold front that came through yesterday on the second day, and that caused the small fish not to bite. So they were struggling to get the mudfish, the bream, and the yellowfish. In this section of the ladies, the carp wasn't biting as well as in the other section, so they had to make sure they make full their quota of yellowfish in this specific sector, and then for bonus fish they had to work on the carp to try and get them.
The intricacies of having to catch 4 different species of fish made for a fascinating competition. The various fish inhabit different areas of the dam and, crucially, are attracted to different baits. So, what was the key to success at the event?
The important thing is to find the fish, the right distance that they're feeding on, because it's different species that you need to work on. So you need to determine which species you can catch at the different distances. And then obviously the bait presentation. You would have seen in the video material that bait selection is very important. The flavors that the guys use to attract the fish, that's important, critical. For the yellowfish, they used some of the coloring powders which attracted the yellowfish, and for the carp, they used some of the stronger flavors to attract the carp, and then created the larger carp species that they caught. So the South African senior men, they did well attracting the larger carp, and that created a bit of an edge for the South African team in the senior section by being able to catch that bigger carp.
Far from being a haphazard setup, the teams are very structured, and each member has at least 1, if not 2 roles within the team. So how are the teams structured in terms of numbers and gender?
A team consists out of 4 anglers for the ladies, 1 reserve, and a manager and a captain that fulfills the same role. So the captain and the manager are on the bank area. They manage the anglers, giving them techniques, change their traces, change their baits, assist them with decisions on where to fish. They need to assess the angling conditions and direct their anglers on what to use, how far to cast, etc. So when those individuals move around on the bank area, they need to assess the situation, determine what's the best strategy, and make the changes based on the current situation. So each day it was a different result. So what happened with the cold front that came through, they had to change their strategies drastically. So the South African guys were able to change it based on the conditions that changed, and Namibia struggled a bit to make that necessary changes. And I think based on the good quality of management that was on the bank, they had the ability to make that changes to adapt to the conditions that they had in front of them for the 3 days.
The ultimate results are determined by the combined weight of the fish each team has caught over a specific time period. The anglers have to make sure they keep tabs on the fish they have caught before they're taken out to be weighed. So how does that all work?
As you can see in the background, each angler has got bags where they keep their fish in until the end of the day. So at 3 o'clock normally it ends, or 4 o'clock depending on the day's situation, and then they need to bring it to the weigh station. At the back you can see the weigh station is there. They put their fish in the mat to get them out of the net, place it into the sling to weigh them, and during that process they count the species, identify them, and then fill in the scorecard. By adding up the quantity of the fish and the species, they're able to then assess the results for the day. So each angler's fish get weighed separately, so the weight counts and as well as the species. So they need to separate the species while they go through the weighing process, and you'll see that the fish species gets weighed in combinedly to get a total weight for the day.
Over the duration of the competition, many hundreds of fish were caught and weighed. Probably enough to keep a fish restaurant in stock for many months. However, these fish caught at the Hardap Dam were not all for the pan, as Andries explains.
Well, there's 2 things that happen with the fish. Firstly, we release most of them back into the dam so that it can be caught again, especially the breeding stock, the larger ones, because they are the breeders in the lake. And then the younger fish, we sometimes sponsor it to the needy persons, so they've got some food to eat for the evening. So we gather some of the fish and then we distribute it under the needy persons.
The competition was tight and the fish suitably elusive but also tempted by the bait, all of which should make for a very good event. And Andries was well pleased with the way it all went.
We think it was very successful. Everybody had the opportunity to have a fair contest. Because of the drawing system that you move from one day to another day to a different fishing position, it means that it creates fairness in terms of the competition. So everybody had a chance to maybe have a difficult day and another day where they had some good quality water, where they could weigh in some big bags. You'll see some of the bags were over 70 kilograms in the seniors, and the ladies are in the vicinity of about 30 kilograms, then it was a good bag. So they had good catch results.
The first 2 days produced good conditions for fishing. The weather did play a role for some of the teams though, as the cold front affected conditions to such a degree that some fish were less likely to bite than others.
Yesterday was a really good day for Zimbabwe in general. For myself, I got a second in my zone and I caught a beautiful carp, so yeah, very good day. Even though the conditions were cold, we pulled it together as a team, so very happy.
I had a very good day yesterday. The wind was a bit hard, but I fished 95 and a 70. My total kilos for the day was 62 kilos. I filled up my quota of 20 carps, and then I also got 6 yellows.
It went well in the first 2 days, but unfortunately due to the weather change our game plan didn't work that well. We wanted to target the small fish, and unfortunately with a cold front moving in from the Cape, we had a problem with the small fish not coming onto the bite, and it was more a carp game, suiting South Africa better because they fish carp more often and they've got lots of more dams to fish than us. So yeah, unfortunately our game plan didn't work that well, but yeah, we're getting there.
With the teams fishing in different zones and therefore varying water conditions, and with the cooler weather, the first 2 days was all about strategy when it came to what fish they were chasing and, most importantly, what bait was being used.
I caught carp, yellows and a muddy. My teammates as well caught some karpa yesterday. I got my quota of yellows, but the carp they aren't biting as well as we would like, but I only got 3 yesterday. And the muddies also aren't on the bite. I think the water's a bit too cold.
For the past days I've been using the Supercast ground bait, and then on my hooks I've got a floaty with a white dough dipped in Parabe and FX, and then now and then I would just change it with just a plain dough, also dipped in Parabe.
We're fishing with a one Parabe float on the bottom with a backing. We're trying to and not lift the float up too high into the water because we see that gets you not that much positive bites. What we're fishing with at the moment is a dip called Bass Plus. We're just putting that over the bait like that, and then starter fits, just small like that, and Legend also.
To those who are unfamiliar with the sport of freshwater bank fishing, it might appear as if the anglers are fishing rather randomly. But that is far from what actually happened at the Hardap Dam over the 3 days of competition, as Zimbabwe's NATALIE ADLAM and South Africa's DREENSLADE told us.
So yeah, on the first day, the fish were coming out well, so I just had to really fish hard and fast to get all the fish out. Then on the second day, things just went dead, and then I had to try a few different things, and then the fish started coming out, and then I started targeting smaller fish then to just at least get some fish in my bag. And then the last day, it was just hanging in tough and hoping that something would bite, and eventually, yeah.
We changed from day to day, and also depended on where we were fishing, because some of the pegs that we were pegged on were very, they had a lot of snags, a lot of trees. Today particularly, we thought we would struggle, but we changed our tactics a little bit, and thank goodness the wind played into our hands, so we didn't have too much rolling of our balls into the snags.
The Hardap Dam provided a serious challenge for all the competitors. It has a good, healthy stock and variety of fish, while the variable water and weather conditions provided each angler with plenty to think and strategize about.
Very many times. It was very different this year. A lot of difference in the weather. Very windy, very hot. The conditions were extremely different.
Fantastic. I love the dam. It makes you think, and it's good fishing. Lots of nice fish. Great experience.
NATALIE ADLAM was the outstanding angler in the Zimbabwe women's team, while DREENSLADE was superb for the South African Masters team. So what made the difference for the two of them and their respective teams this year?
Maybe just experience and sticking to your basic principles that you know work. That's the main thing, I would say.
I think a very big effort from South Africa to allow us to use a South African coach, Jeff Eckhout. He was very good. He knew the conditions, he knew what we should do, what we shouldn't do. He knew the strengths of the team and the weaknesses of the team, and that he played to our advantages.
While angling is not an Olympic sport, it does have a major international window at the World Games, which are this year held in Birmingham in England. South African Masters team member AA Spence van Heerden and NATALIE ADLAM tell us what they learned from the competition at the Hardap Dam and what the future holds.
We're looking forward to the World Games for starters. Our experiences here, we learned an awful lot about casting, how to place our baits. That was very, very important in Hardap. We normally can just place our baits and it would be fine, but in Hardap it had to be absolutely accurate, it had to be absolutely on the clip. And the type of bait that we used, because every single day was a different type of bait that we used, it was a different combination of baits that we used, and we learn quite a lot about the weather conditions regarding the types of baits that we use.
Every single day when you're going on a fishing outing, you will learn something new. And the most important thing that I actually learned here again is that confidence in what you are doing is the most important thing. The team management of the SASAC Masters team, they never ever forced any dips, any bait onto us. So it was up to the angler himself that, listen here, you can use in which you have actually confidence in. And so it actually just reaffirmed to me that confidence is the best thing to come victorious out of this whole tournament and that. And so, but it's a very nice tournament, and the sport of angling, it actually offers you so much opportunities to actually develop yourself as a person, because all of a sudden you come here to this tournament and you're coming as a team members, as a team of members from different provinces, and all of those provinces and all those team members, they have their own philosophy about the sport and that, and all of a sudden you're in one team and you actually have to share all of that philosophy. And there's my packmate, for example, Andre Besaidno. He must be one of the best packmates I ever had. And today I was actually fishing with Chris Boland. What a wonderful packmate to have. But we never ever forced one person's philosophy onto the next person. So that's the most important thing. Trust in what you do, use your confidence, and that will actually ensure success for you in that.
The 3 tests in the Region 5 freshwater bank angling tournament on the Hardap Dam in Namibia provided a truly world-class environment in which the anglers were tested on all their skills and strategies required to perform at their best. And this is exactly what the anglers were looking for, as Spence van Heerden told us.
It was very, very tough. You have to adapt the whole time. We actually had to look into the weather forecast for the 3 days that was coming for the free test. And we actually noticed that on day 2 we will have actually a very strong wind from the southern side. And normally a southern wind, it will always go with a cold front that's coming in and that. So on the last test, the wind actually changed from a east wind to from a southern wind to an northeast wind. So you have to adapt once again. So it's as a fisherman, you must always assess the venue itself during your practice days, and that what I'm always doing, I will identify the species that is available in the venue itself, and you actually must make a plan as well as an alternative plan for each and every venue, every species. For example, here at Hardap, we knew that yellowfish is going to play a huge role during the tournament, and so you actually have to bag 20 every single day. And then there was carp available, there was bream available, there was barbel available, and then there was also the odd barbel available. So you actually had more than ample opportunities for which you could actually have prepared. Targeting the different species is not going to be the very same game plan. It can never be like that, because they will feed at different distances. So you actually have as soon as you begin in the morning, you actually must decide for yourself, what am I going to target during the day? Am I going to target the carp? Am I going to target the yellowfish? And once again, during the practice day, you should have actually assessed that. To obtain the maximum points to win your zone, you must actually get yourself a strategy with different species, also part of this and that. For example, in day one, or let me start it with, on Saturday and Sunday, what we have noticed is that carp is quite, it's available, but it would have been very, very difficult to get your quota of 20. Yellowfish, it was actually maximum. But now, once again, you actually have to assess the entire venue. From A zone, B zone, C zone, it actually changed. Even the distances changed. So you have to adapt, because you are not going to compete every single day in a very same zone. So you actually have to move on in that. My personal strategy for the week, it was to go for the carp in the morning. But before, the very first thing, after I've put in my first rod for the carp, I actually put in feed at 35 meters. And I actually considered it's my insurance policy. And that insurance policy actually, it helped me during the second test, because 1 o'clock I only had 7 fish on the deeper distances, 95, 105. And I actually came back on my feet 35 meters, and I actually filled up my bag from 7 to 30 with bream, mudfish, as well as yellowfish and that. So you can never ever be one-dimensional here. What you also have to consider is that you cannot use the very same trays for barbel, carp, bream, or all of that. Most of the team members during this tournament, and I'm speaking specifically about the SASAC members, we actually used the 0.5 Daiichi. And then the hook line length that we actually used, and it was specifically aimed at the barbel, not the barbel, at the mudfish and the yellowfish. It was between 5 and 6 centimeters. And then we also had a difference in, are we going to use a reed fly, are we going to use a bottom trace? So it actually changed from person to person, but at the end of the day, all what I can say, never ever be one-dimensional. Adapt with the circumstances. We have all the technology available to us, for example, with regards to the weather forecast, the pressure. Is it going to be a low pressure system, high pressure system, and all of that? Is there going to be a drop in the temperature? What will be the wind direction? And all of that must be considered. So it's not about dips, it's not about baits. Everything plays a role, and at the end of the day, the best person adapts to the circumstances. He will be the person who will prevail at the end of the day, and that actually assisted me a lot.
In the senior team competition, the Proteas were too good for Namibia, with Ares Engelbrecht topping the individual standings with a fish points total of 278.22. In the Masters competition, it was again South Africa who prevailed over Namibia, Spence van Heerden just getting the better of Dave DREENSLADE in the individual competition. The women's competition had Zimbabwe, Namibia and South Africa involved, and South Africa took first place in the team competition ahead of Zimbabwe. NATALIE ADLAM of Zimbabwe is the top angler, with JF Venter and MF Venter of South Africa second and third. If you would like to showcase a sporting story, an event, a character, or a spectacular achievement with us, let us know at showcase@supersport.com.